VocalEye Almost Live Zoom. Indian Summer Festival Highlights 2022. Hosted by Amy Amantea. With special guests Laura June Albert, Pawan Deol, and Sejal.
Welcome to the VocalEye Almost Live event. My name is Amy Amantea. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the community outreach coordinator for these VocalEye events, your host, and also a member of the blind community. And it's been a journey with my community, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. I just want to extend a huge thank you to our donors and our supporters for the contributions that you make. And if you feel like you have the capacity to make a financial contribution, we welcome those with open arms. That's the honest truth. And if you don't fret. There are other ways that you can support us. In fact, we just got a lovely letter from our friend Tony in New York. So Tony, if you're listening, thank you for the lovely letter. Folks, if you want to write letters of support or testimonials sharing the impact of the programming, it goes a very, very long way. So keep those letters coming. We love they bring joy when I read them. So thank you so much for those. If you happen to be watching this evening's presentation on our YouTube channel, we really hope that you press that like and subscribe buttons. Hit them both. All right, I'm going to bring Steph Kirkland into the space, who's going to offer our land acknowledgement this evening.
Thanks, Amy. I'm offering this on behalf of Ingrid, who can't be here tonight. So these are her words. VocalEye is based on the ancestral lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, who have stewarded these lands and waters for many thousands of years. And we respect and appreciate that their stewardship has made this a good place to live, despite our having displaced them from their lands. Acknowledging Indigenous people and their ancestral territories is an important part of addressing the historic wrongs done to the Indigenous people here in North America, and is part of the Truth and Reconciliation process developed by the Canadian Truth and Reconciliation Commission of 2008. It investigated and documented the atrocities perpetrated against Indigenous people in the colonization of North America, the residential school system in particular. The Commission made recommendations to prevent such atrocities from happening again. These recommendations take the form of 94 calls to action. The first 42 calls to action are about redressing the legacy of harm done to Indigenous peoples in Canada. The next calls to action are about reconciliation. In view of the Pope's penitential journey to Canada and apology to Indigenous people for the cruelty they have endured at the hands of the Church and its workers, it's been noted that he did not include the repudiation of two concepts espoused by the Church that laid the foundation of white supremacy and colonization, which are specifically named in Call to Action 49. These are the doctrine of discovery and the definition of terra nullius. The doctrine of discovery was laid out in the 15th century by Pope Alexander VI to justify claiming the territories on which Columbus had landed the year before. Other nations adopted it so that governments could lay title to territory because the colonizers discovered it. The doctrine has been primarily used to invalidate or ignore Aboriginal possession of land. The second concept, terra nullius, means nobody's land. It is a principle used in international law to justify claims to territory acquired by a state's occupation of it, basically saying finders keepers about any territories unclaimed by other nations. Despite the very clear call to action number 49 for the repudiation of these concepts, the Pope did not even acknowledge the doctrine of discovery and the concept of terra nullius, and many, many people are disappointed and angry that he stopped short of doing so. And if I may share with you words of the Honorable Murray Sinclair, the former Senator and Chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, who issued the following statement yesterday. I want to recognize the importance of the Pope's apology to survivors, their families, and communities. For many survivors, I know that hearing the words of contrition from the Pope was and is an important factor in their personal recoveries and growth. My thoughts and prayers are with them as they listened. When we set out call to action 58 in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission final report, the goal was always to have survivors hear firsthand not only remorse, but an acceptance of responsibility for what they were put through at the hands of the Church and other institutions. Despite this historic apology, the Holy Father's statement has left a deep hole in the acknowledgement of the full role of the Church in the residential school system by placing blame on individual members of the Church. It is important to underscore that the Church was not just an agent of the state, nor simply a participant in government policy, but was a lead co-author of the darkest chapters in the history of this land. Driven by the doctrine of discovery and other Church beliefs and doctrines, Catholic leaders not only enabled the Government of Canada, but pushed it even further in its work to commit cultural genocide of Indigenous peoples. In many instances, it was not just a collaboration, but an instigation. There are clear examples in our history where the Church called for the Government of Canada to be more aggressive and bold in its work to destroy Indigenous culture, traditional practices, and beliefs. It was more than the work of a few bad actors. This was a concerted institutional effort to remove children from their families and cultures, all in the name of Christian supremacy. While an apology has been made, the same doctrine is in place. The Pope and the Church remain silent on the most problematic tenets of its belief system, that Indigenous peoples in Canada and around the world should not have the right to practice their own faith, cultures, and traditions. Reconciliation requires action, not passiveness. The UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples specifically calls for action to assist in restoring culture, beliefs, and traditions destroyed through past actions, as to fail to do so allows for the destructive agency to live with the benefit from those past misdeeds. For the children and descendants of survivors, it is not enough that you have stopped abusing them. You must act to help them recover, as well as commit to never doing this again. As the Pope continues his pilgrimage this week to meet First Nations, Métis, and Inuit survivors, I hope he will take this to heart. There is a better path that the Church and all Canadians can indeed follow, taking responsibility for past actions and resolving to do better on this journey of reconciliation. We must commit ourselves to talk to and about each other with respect. Back to you, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you, Steph. A lot to unpack there. And those of us who are in Canada, I hope you're all doing what I'm doing, which is reading up on what's been happening, listening to the different perspectives of folks that are experiencing this, and trying to I don't know, to have an active ear and to listen to what's being said. Yeah, a lot to unpack. So thank you for sharing that, Steph. Welcome. It's another Wednesday night, July the 20th, 2022. And we're proud to offer you this evening our Almost Live event number 94, which is highlights from the Indian Summer Festival. Really excited to get into that. So without further ado, I think maybe I should just welcome in our guests. We have several tonight, so we're going to start with Laura June and Pawan, and let's bring them into the space. And let's have a recap, I guess, about what the Indian Summer Festival is all about. So I'm gonna welcome to the two of you. Anything you want to say about yourselves before we get into the conversation? Laura June, you want to start?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you so much for having us back. Episode number 94 of the Watch Party. Congratulations.
Incredible, right?
Really incredible. Incredible work you folks are doing. I'm such a huge fan. This is my third watch party, and I think my fifth year collaborating with VocalEye, and so I'm really honored to be back here. I'm happy to introduce myself or the organization. Is that what you'd like me to do next?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, my name is Laura June Albert. My first name is Laura June. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a white settler. My ancestors came to this continent from England and France 7 and 8 generations ago. I grew up on the west coast of the continent, and I'm the first generation in my family to do so. So in multiple ways, I'm a settler, in the sense that my family came here by boat, and also in the sense that I myself moved to the city where I live now in Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh territory, colonially known as Vancouver. I moved here myself from a small town that I grew up in, and so I moved to where I live, and my family also moved to this continent. And so I identify very much as a settler and a white person. I have been with the organization Indian Summer Festival for many years now. This is my 7th year with the organization. A little bit about us. We are a multidisciplinary arts and culture festival that centers and amplifies the work of South Asian multidisciplinary artists in these territories. So our work broadcasts the work of South Asian diverse, culturally identified South Asian people, South Asia being a massive geographic area housing many diverse cultures. And so we amplify and center the work of contemporary South Asian artists with a sense of exploration and experimentation in the work. The work is curated through a South Asian lens, and we work at the intersection of ideas series and talks, discursive activations, as well as performance-based events, visual arts events, musical events, theatrical and installation events. And so we work through all of these various disciplines with an eye towards thinking about contemporaneity. And the way that the organization was founded was to look at a space for diverse cultural activations by and for South Asian artists to express themselves in the way that feels most freeing and most true to who they are as people, as opposed to having to fit into certain stereotypical expectations around performing some sort of South Asianness towards a white gaze or a Canadian, quote unquote, Canadian gaze. And so this curatorial approach has been led by our co-founder of the organization, Sirish Rao, who's our artistic director, has been a co-founder of the organization for the last 12 years. We've just concluded our 12th edition of the festival. And so we're just a week out and fresh off of that high to come here to this VocalEye watch party to share with you some highlights and some artist perspectives and some work that was presented through that festival.
That's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible what you all are doing. Pawan, for yourself, what do we need to know about you? What's your role with the festival?
Yeah, hi everyone. This is so much fun. I'm so happy to be back. I was with you all, or maybe not all of you, but some of you maybe last year, and this is my second time back. So thanks for having us. Yeah, my name is Pawan. I use she, her pronouns, and my role, festival producer. That's my role. I'm still kind of in this thick post-festival haze, trying to deal with all the pieces that need to be dealt with. But my role is to oversee the entire production of our annual summer festival. So that's production crew and techs and booking locations and coordinating event design and decor and coordinating all the artists and volunteers. That's what my team does. And so it's a real busy time of year for the production team. And it takes a lot to pull off something like this. And we're so happy to share it with you all. It's definitely a commitment, and we're a passionate team. We put our heart into everything that we do. And so it's just nice to see it get that wider kind of perspective, to get it out there. Mm-hmm. Me specifically, my family is from actually northern India in a state called Punjab. So that's my family of origin. I was born in Prince George, British Columbia. So I'm a first generation cisgender brown woman. And there's a lot of intersections there, and it's complex, but I'm here and I'm so proud to be a part of the Indian Summer Art Society.
And how long have you been a part of the festival experience, Pawan?
Ooh, with this organization, gosh, I'd say up to 4.5, 5-year mark now.
Hard to keep track, right?
Yeah, it gets all blurry, but Laura June's definitely got me beat.
Well, luckily for us, it's not a competition in this space, so I love that. This might not be a fair question to ask, but I'm curious because we have just come out of the pandemic. I don't even want to say that out loud because COVID will always be with us. But we maybe come out of the thick of things, so to speak. And, festivals are coming back online, like in live perspectives and some hybrid perspectives. Do you have any idea, just as the festival has concluded, how many folks you actually had? Like, have you got a number of folks that came out into physical spaces? It's a free for all. Anyone can answer that one.
I'm leaving that to Laura June. I have not delved into the numbers.
It's probably not a fair question, but
I actually do have the capacity to find somewhat of a number. Give me a moment here and I'd be.
Well, you can think about it because we have a Q&A at the end and we can talk about it then as well, because it just cued to me because of us being in this space where, are people comfortable? Are they not comfortable? Where are they? And so what did the festival do this year in terms of being in in-person spaces to try and reduce the spread of COVID?
Would you like to speak to that, Pawan, or would you like me to?
You can take it.
Okay. Well, yeah, I really actually appreciate this question because it's been such a journey over the last few years figuring out how to reach audiences. We, as a team, we're a small team. There's 6 of us in the core team with a number of seasonal hires that come on each year to make the festival happen. And so all of us came from the world of live performing arts. We all came up through gathering people in events in person. That's all of our trainings. That's all of our, career to date. That's our education. This is where we came from. It's like the live arts world. And so when in spring of 2020, March was the beginning, as we all know, and our festival's in July. So we were just about ready to launch our box office when the first wave hit. And so we pivoted overnight to become, like so many arts organizations, something like a television station, which is not what we went to school for. And certainly people do go to school for that. So it was a massive learning curve. And thankfully to us all, we were blessed in our team by Pawan, who is co-hosting from Indian Summer with me tonight, who has some experience and who worked a great deal in the broadcast industry. And so she brought so much of her production expertise, which gifted and benefited us all as an organization. And I'm truly not sure that we would have been able to survive without some of that expertise in-house, because we don't come from that world of filmmaking. But we made 2 really beautiful digital festivals, and I'm incredibly proud of them. I'm incredibly proud of our team. And this year we decided to return to in-person events. And I'm with you, Amy. The pandemic is not over. That's not the reality that we're living in. Yeah. And in fact, it's incredibly ableist and problematic to describe it as such. And so this has been something that we're really challenged by, because in our hearts, that's what we are, as a live in-person organization. That's what we do. We provide in-person. That's our mandate. That's our mission. And our purpose as an organization is to bring people together in space physically. But we were afraid to hurt ourselves, to hurt each other, to put artists at risk. Many of our artists are vulnerable people. Many of our team are vulnerable people. And so we were very trepidatious and cautious, as well as afraid that events could get canceled. This is a really interesting time for the live cultural sector, arts and cultural sector. And so the way that we decided to approach it in the end was to implement a mandatory mask policy at our events, which was a bit of a bold move. And we did get some pushback, although not much, from our audiences. For the most part, our audience was incredibly supportive and really on board. Our artists were, by vast majority, incredibly thankful. Many of our artists expressed that they felt so cared for by that gesture. And a lot of our audience members expressed that they wouldn't have felt safe to attend and wouldn't have been able to attend had there not been that mandatory mask policy in place. And I myself also benefited from it, as I live with an immune compromised person. So I felt very cared for myself as somebody on the team. We also implemented a daily testing policy for all of our team and volunteers for daily COVID testing. And we're really happy to say that nobody on our team got sick as a result of attending the festival. And we haven't heard of anybody getting sick in the audience either. So even though I feel the majority of the population is discussing a sort of quote unquote post-COVID environment. That's not how we approach the festival. And that's in keeping with our intention as an organization to be accessible and to center the needs of folks who face barriers in all of the aspects of the ways that we approach things. As an organization that really stands for racial justice at our center, at our core, we need to understand that intersectionality is how power operates. And so in order for us to create spaces that are doing the work of racial justice, we need to be thinking about barriers across all access points. And so for us, having a really progressive and forward-thinking COVID safety policy was the best way for us to do that gathering this year.
Wow, I mean, I'm only sad that I wasn't there in person, but the truth is that there are so many things that are coming around. But let's get to one of those things, because we've got a video to share of DJ Osho. The Osho is the video. But I want to just talk a bit about DJ Osho and set up this video. The video doesn't have any description. It's a 20-minute video. It's mostly dialogue based, but we want to set up the vibe for folks so that we have an idea of what this is about. So let's talk a bit about DJ Osho.
Yeah, I mean, this was a really amazing opportunity for our organization. This documentary features the energetic and enthusiastic Oreen Eskew, also known as DJ Osho. It's sort of a window into the world of Oreen and her life as an Afro-Indigenous, two-spirited leader. She's a motivational speaker. She's also a killer DJ. And she's a proud member of the Squamish Nation. And so this doc really looks into her life, her identity, her community work that has inspired so many. I should also mention that the film was actually directed by Vancouver-based Sharad Khare. He's a South Asian storyteller, documentarian, award-winning, like, producer, director, person. And he also co-founded the Indigenous Collective. And so he's been collaborating with Indigenous communities, directing and producing video projects that capture like these stories. And so it's a neat partnership. It's a neat little intersection. Yeah, I mean, is there anything else you would add, Laura June?
I love that introduction. I guess maybe what I would add is that this is part of the curatorial approach that our artistic director takes, Sirish Rao, is to think through what it is to platform between communities and for the work to be a site for the festival itself to be a site of reaching through and across perceived sites of difference between communities. And so in this case, the filmmaker, being a person of South Asian descent, working with this Afro-Indigenous local community organizer and artist was the kind of solidarity that we could show through the festival around acknowledging the land and the first keepers of the land and the rightful keepers of the land, as well as being really aware, keenly aware of a sense of place in the way that we approach the curatorial work.
Awesome. Laura June, do you want to offer maybe an image description of DJ Osho? And then I'll kind of set us up when you talk about the vibe.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. Oreen is a light. I had the great pleasure of spending several hours with Oreen on the day of this event and watching her carry herself backstage and on stage before and after the film screened she's a magnetic, captivating person. And I think that comes through in the film. It's an interesting challenge to describe somebody. I would describe Oreen as she's a self-identified Afro-Indigenous person. She has black hair that's in tight braids close to her scalp. She presents with really like a funky style, a very street style that is largely informed by Salish design. And so she's often wearing like really bright yellow and red colors with Salish patterns on them of, kind of a street informed like hip hop look to the way that, so she's quite colorful in the way that she presents herself.
Awesome. I'm going to just share a bit about the vibe. And if you want to jump in and add anything at the end, that's great. But in watching this video to set it up for you all, what I keenly noticed were things about the urban city backdrop that sort of sets up this video. It's filmed in Vancouver, so we've got a lot of water and city skyscrapers and that kind of thing in this urban background. And there's this juxtaposition of that with some nature shots, which I think were really beautiful. And then, of course, we transition into talking to various, like in any documentary, right? We're talking to various people in Oreen's life. So her mother, other DJs, mentors and friends. So you'll hear people's voices coming in and out just to share their perspectives of Oreen's work and their relationship with Oreen. And there's also a lot of photos that are of her growing up in the background. And I just have to say that there was a moment for me that was really, really impactful. And I want to just share it all with you, because as we get into this, there's a moment where Oreen, DJ Osho, talks about celebrating color, and talks about the concept of I don't see color and celebrating color. And to the backdrop of that is a bit of a protest, and that kind of carries throughout a little bit in these videos, in the video. But in the backdrop are two particular protest signs, and one of them says Black Lives Matter, and the other one, which I'd never seen or heard anywhere before, said respect existence or expect resistance. I'll say it again: respect existence or expect resistance. And I had to stop and pause that to make sure I could zoom in and read that. But it was so impactful for me. And so as she talks about this idea of celebrating color, I want you to know that that's to the backdrop of this protest that's happening. And then you'll hear the protest a little bit later as she speaks to the crowd. So so that's kind of the vibe. Anything you want to add to the vibe, either of you, before we hit play on this video? No, we're good?
Oh, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. And of course, we can talk about it afterwards. There is some text in there, friends. There's a land acknowledgement text and some text that's at the end of the video, which I have learned is a little bit outdated. So we'll just pretend it's not there, perhaps. But we're going to talk about it when we come back. So Rick, when you're ready, let's play the O Show.
Due to copyright restrictions, excerpts of this presentation have not been recorded. Please check below for more information, including links to the material if it is hosted elsewhere.
Okay, that was the O Show, friends. What an interesting human being. Let's welcome Laura June and Pawan back into the space. And I'm going to introduce a third guest into the space, and it's Sejal. And Sejal is going to be the next artist that we talk about, but I want to invite Sejal in now to reflect on this video as well. So let's wait a moment and have Sejal join us in a virtual square. And while we're waiting for that to happen, oh, there's Sejal. We got 4 squares. Awesome. I'm going to get you to introduce yourself in just a moment, if it's okay for you to wait until we share your work or talk about your work. But I just, this thing that Oreen says right at the end, which is she knows who she is. It's not her that's conflicted, it's the world that's conflicted with her, really is quite resonant and quite a powerful statement. So I'm interested from the three of you, first, if you, I'm Laura Jean, you had said that you had spent time with DJ Osho. So maybe have some experiences that you can share, but also just curious about what your reflections are on watching this piece. Anybody want to volunteer to start? Okay, I'm gonna pick on you then. So Laura June, why don't you just jump right in? I know the Zoom space is that place, right, where we can't cross chatter and we're like, who's gonna jump in and chat? So Laura June, let's start with you, because you had mentioned, you had volunteered that you had spent some time with Oreen.
Oh, I just think that piece is so well made, and I'm so struck by Oreen's incredible beauty and vibrancy. I'm very grateful for that piece and thankful to have the chance to watch it again tonight. I think that's my 4th time seeing it, and I'm just as struck by it as ever. I do have a couple of reflections. I think So a little bit, maybe just to position my perspective, like my work, how I've come to work in, I've worked in the arts all my life, and I have been inquiring into a study around whiteness, critical whiteness theory, for about the last maybe 15 years or so. And I did my master's degree in whiteness and white supremacy structures in contemporary art spaces. And so I'm interested in, as a white person, like the way that I come to the work with Indian Summer Festival as a space that is making an intervention of sorts into the cultural, capital A arts cultural landscape in so-called Vancouver. The way that I come at that work is as somebody who's interrogating my own whiteness and whiteness in the surrounding landscape. And so that's just to share a bit of my perspective, but cut to the chase. What I'm feeling is, watching Oreen, I think it's so important for white folks, especially multi-generational white settlers like myself, to recognize that, for example, the residential school system, that's white history. That's our history. My people made those systems. Mm-hmm. We enacted that violence. That violence is our history to reckon with. And I think it gets positioned so often as like Indigenous history. And I really think that I'm so moved by Oreen, like carving out a space of joy around her, that like to claim joy and to act joy and to live joy and to celebrate beauty and move with freedom by enacting her freedom through her joy. I feel like really deeply inspired by her. So that's just a surface level reflection. Thanks for asking.
Pawan, how about for yourself? Anything you'd like to reflect on, or things that stood out for you in the video? Getting some hearts that are popping up on the participants panel.
Yeah, it's so sweet to see the hearts. I've also seen this a few times now, and I'm equally struck by the power of story, and to see someone, like the light of a person meeting their moment. I think someone in the doc described Oreen originally, or as a young person, as shy and quiet, and then you see like her voice and the power it carries and the movements she's creating. And I don't know, I just feel, I feel like inspired is always so overused these days, like inspirational, inspired, I'm inspired, but it just, I get excited about what's possible when I watch Oreen, when I hear her speak, when I hear her DJ, like all of it, like what Laura June is saying about her presence, it is just this radiating joy. And I think being in the presence of that is almost like inspiring enough. And yet when you watch the story and the history and you see all these amazing like hardships they've overcome, I'm just kind of moved every time I see it.
To reflect on what you were saying about the storytelling that's in this video. It's a 20-minute documentary, although we know a 20-minute documentary had probably hours of footage to create this 20 minutes, but there is even a nice story arc within 20 minutes, right? A nice storytelling arc that is easy to follow, and like you said, sort of lays out this idea of who Oreen was as a young person and how that trajectory has developed who they are and how they've grown into this really strong advocate with a really strong voice, and somebody who is really wanting to embrace change and make change and encourage change, and isn't afraid to talk about stuff.
Yeah.
And boy, do we need more people like that in this world. It's one of the things that really really stuck out for me. I'm paying more and more attention these days to literally like narratives and storytelling arcs. It's become something that is on my radar to think about more and more often. I'm starting to recognize it. Sejal, for yourself, any reflections on this piece for yourself?
Yeah, hi folks, my name is Sejal. My pronouns are she, her. One of the things, so I've seen DJ Osho at several events just over the years and really always appreciated her art. She is a great DJ. Like, it's fun being at events that she's DJing at. And so as an artist in the city, I've always just really respected her from the margins. Like, I've just, yeah, respect her as an artist. When I see this video, it kind of made me think back about, she's one of the artists that I think, you know, for me as like emerging, learning to be an artist, like one of the things that I admire about her approach is that she's not afraid to name those intersections, because I think most people come from places of numerous intersections, but unless you know how, or are kind of like learning how to name those intersections and name the different places that you're coming from in your life, it's like, it's kind of the way that you also learn how to see the perspectives that other people are coming from, because depending on the you know, the identities that you're coming from, you experience life in a very different way from the person next to you, you know. And so I've appreciated DJ Osho's like willingness to kind of point at it and say, this is what I experienced because of this side of my life. This is what I experienced because of this side of my life. And at times those are conflicting, you know. Right. And I think that that's not unique to her. I think she's actually demonstrating that that's what a lot of folks are coming from, but learn how to identify it, learn how to kind of settle into the discomfort of it a little bit. And I really appreciate her her bringing that forward in her art, and even outside of her art. So yeah,
I think you hit the nail right on the head. Nail on the head. I always get that sometimes my dyslexia gets that analogy backwards. So I just wanted to make sure it came out properly. It's like saying that I dotted my T's and crossed my I's. It's like, no, that's not how that works. So thank you for your reflections on this, because I think it's a beautiful piece. And is this piece like available on the Indian Summer Festival website, or is this the last chance folks are going to be able to view it in this space?
I can speak to that. Yeah, this piece is actually, Pawan might be able to speak more to it than I can, but I'll get you started. The piece is, this is a special viewing here at VocalEye, exclusive to the folks in the space, because this film is still in the film festival circuit. It's been winning awards, it's been touring the world, along with the filmmaker and Oreen Soshard-Kari and Oreen Askew have been touring this work. And it is still in that circuit, which is why we're not able to broadcast it post this live event.
What else is coming up for Oreen? Do we know, other than touring the world with the video? But are there other things that are happening? Other albums that are being created? Anybody know what's going on?
I know that this work is still front and center, touring this work and taking it into different film festivals that it hasn't been up for yet. Like, they're in that submission process. I don't come from that film world, so it's a little bit mysterious to me how that works, but I know that they've been submitting it to places and then jet setting around. And so I think this work is really front and center at this time.
Well, thank you for bringing it to us. It's a privilege to be able to witness it in this space, knowing that it feels like, it's like, I think there's going to be big things for this video, and when that happens, I will be the one who gets to say, I remember when I saw it, right? But it's like, it's a couple of people in my life who I knew who have now made it really big in the world, and it's like, I remember that person when, you know, and so it feels a little bit like an insider treat to be able to witness something like this before the rest of the world gets exposed to its beauty and everything that it offers. So much love to Oreen and team for the beautiful work. I think more hearts appearing on the participants list. So people, it's resonating with folks. So we wish Oreen all the best of luck in that endeavor. I think maybe what we'll do is we'll focus a little bit on Sejal in the space. So you started your introduction, and now I'm going to give you more time to talk about who you are as an artist. If you want to share a bit about your background, do a diversity description, whatever you feel comfortable with, Sejal, it is your space right now before we start listening to your music.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, so my name is Sejal. My pronouns are she, her. I am a South Asian descent settler, grew up in Surrey. My family comes from the state of Gujarat on the western side of India. So yeah, I'm a Gujarati descent settler. But I grew up in Saskatoon. I was born in Saskatoon and grew up in Surrey, over there on the unceded territories of the Semiahmoo, the Kwantlen, the Tsawwassen, Musqueam, Katzie, Coquitlam peoples. I now live in South Vancouver on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. I am a cisgender person. I guess a description: I have brown skin. I have curly black hair. I wear glasses, and today I am wearing big sunflower earrings because it's summer, and they felt nice to wear today. And I'm wearing an orange shirt from the Urban Native Youth Association that has kind of a graffiti style Thunderbird on it that says "Every child matters." So that's I hope that was adequate, Amy.
Yeah, no, that's great, and thank you for sharing what's on your t-shirt, because I think it's an important t-shirt. It's not like I'm wearing a shirt with a Nike emblem. I shouldn't call out Nike, but I'm gonna, it's not one of those t-shirts. So thank you for sharing that, because I would have no idea of what was written on your shirt. So thank you for that. You're an artist too.
Yes, right. I was like, what am I here for? Right.
What am I missing?
I am an artist of sorts. I play the violin and I sing. I started violin lessons when I was very young, when I was 5 years old. My parents put me into music lessons. I did not like practicing. My teachers were ever patient with me. I kind of grew up in classical music, like classical Western music. I also studied Kathak, which is a traditional classical dance form from North India. And so I also had that influence of Hindustani music and rhythms and melodies and harmonies kind of in there as well. So music and dance was kind of like what I grew up doing. I kind of stuck more to music though, and kind of started singing more, and then learning how to write my own songs eventually. And I now play in a duo which is called LaydyJams, LaydyJams. That's my duo, with my best friend, one of my best friends, Missy D. But today it's just me. I'm here kind of like I was doing a little solo thing. But the videos we have to share today are, one of them is like a solo piece that I've written and performed, and one of them is, of course, with my band LaydyJams. Yeah.
Awesome. So maybe you can, I don't know, tell me how it is that you got involved in the Indian Summer Festival.
Yeah. So, okay. So, I mean, as I don't know, as a young person, I had seen, or as a young artist, I guess I'd seen Indian Summerfest over the years, and it was always kind of this festival that I was like, oh my gosh, I hope one day I'll get to play as part of that. And I remember going to events and just being like, oh, I just want to be part of this world so badly, just because of the caliber of artists that they were bringing in many, many different art forms, in music, in dance, in literature, in film, I remember going to, this is probably more recent, but like one of them that sticks out, they had like the 5x15 series, and they had Eden Robinson speaking, who is the author of the Trickster series.
Oh, yeah.
And she spoke for 15 minutes and she mostly laughed. She's so funny. She's just so funny. And it was, but the quality of the, of the things that she was talking about, the storytelling that she sharing. And then after her, there was, I think, is it Arthur Flowers? Is that the name of the artist? I don't know. Pawan or Laura June might be able to remember. But
yes, Arthur Flowers, yes.
Seeing him perform, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is wild. Like, and then they used to bring in, of course, they'd also have like these big shows at like the Chan Center. A few years ago, they had Ustad Amjad Ali Khan and his sons come, who are sarod players. Those are like multi-stringed instruments that I think VocalEye had.
We were there.
Yeah,
Some of us were there in person.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I brought my elderly teacher. So I have 3 music teachers. One is my elderly Hindustani music teacher. He is blind himself and has been since he was a child. And he's like 80 plus. But I got tickets to go for Amjad Ali Khan. So I took him with me. I brought him along, and we actually went in to the VocalEye session where they were like folks were getting the chance to see, to hang out with the instruments and get to feel them and get an idea of how they work. Of course, my teacher is like a very well-respected master in these musical forms, so he knew, but he still wanted to be there. He had a good time. And then we watched the performance, and it was incredible. So there's just been so many of these types of events over the years with Indian Summer Festival that I was like, it's just the intersections of people and artists and thinkers and scholars that they're bringing together. I just wanted to be part of it. So I was really grateful to, I guess now it's 3 Indian Summer Festivals ago. So in 2020, Sirish had reached out and asked if I would be willing to do a solo piece. And I said, yes, of course. I've been waiting for this my whole life. And then last year I did it with LaydyJams. He asked us again to come as LaydyJams. And then this year, which is my 3rd year, he asked LaydyJams to perform for the opening party for Indian Summer Festival. So we finally got to do like a live, be at a live event here. So
I always, Sejal, you should tell that story about the first time your dad saw one of your Indian summer performances. And I think you told me he like finally started to take you like seriously as like an artist or something. And I remember that story, and it makes me laugh so much.
Yes. So in 2020, this is of course the first one that ISF had to pivot to online. And we were pre-filmed, and then they kind of showed it online, and people could kind of log in and watch it. So my parents, I told my parents, like, I'm in Indian Summer Festival this year, you guys better watch it, whatever. So they actually dressed up at home to watch. It was cute. And right before I performed was Ruby Singh and Pilk Silk.
Yes. That was amazing. Yeah.
Like, man, I'm following after these folks, and they're like everybody on that lineup for that 2020 ISF Beginnings event, which was like basically the opening event. Like everybody, they're all like impeccable artists with years of experience and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, my one little song's gonna be in there, and my parents are watching, and I'm nervous. Anyways, my parents watched it, and afterwards they're like, wow, that was very impressive. I'm very proud of you. I was like, what?
You're an artist.
I'm like, yes. Mama, I made it. I made it.
So this is the video we're gonna see right now. Can you set it up for us, just so we have a little bit of background about what you're doing in this video, where it's shot?
Yes, I will say that the credit goes to the Indian Summerfest team for making me look so professional and sound professional and picking a sweet spot. But basically, I was filmed at Sinnock, which is colonially known as Vanier Park. And at the time, the Vancouver Biennale, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I don't know what the word means. It's like public art stuff. There was a like a chain link metal mosque that was made at Sinnock as a piece of public art, and they actually got permission from the Biennale to film me inside of the metal mosque. So you can see the sun coming through. I'm inside. I'm wearing like a blue skirt with gold print on it and a gold blouse, and I am holding my violin in my left hand and plucking it with my right hand while I'm singing at the same time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's, without further ado, have a watch and a listen to this. And this is from the 2020 Indian Summer Festival.
tell me, love, what's in your name? And tell me, love, and tell me, love, what's in your name? Come down now, tell me, love, and tell me, love, what's in your name? Some days, a moment of clarity, content with all I am behind this name. When I'm at peace with all parts of my identity, a moment of clarity. So tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, love, what's in your name? What's in your name? Feel the beat of your life in its cadence, it's in you, so live it and love it. I am my mother's, I am my father's, I am all who came before me, and we are complete, now more than ever, now more than ever, now more than ever. So tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, love, what's in your name? What's in your name? Feel the beat of your life in its cadence, it's in you, so live it and love it. Tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, love, what's in your name? What's in your name? Feel the beat of your life in its cadence, it's in you, so live it and love it. Your skin, it speaks stories. Your skin. In my eyes, we are divine. In my eyes, we are divine. We are divine. So, in my eyes, we are divine. Oh, in my eyes, we are divine. We are divine. So tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, love, what's in your name? What's in your name? And feel the beat of your life in its cadence, it's in you, so live it and love it.
Well, that was beautiful. So Sejal can pop back on screen now. Okay. Live it and love it. It's in you. Live it and love it. Oh my goodness. Really saying something there, my friend. Before we talk about the meaning and how you wrote the song, a little bit about your process, I'm curious about just the logistics of the violin, because of course I think of the violin as having a bow, and but you're pulling it almost like they're guitar strings, and then you're tapping the wood like it's a drum a little bit. So is that part of a traditional practice, or like is that you experimenting? I don't know much about the violin to know how to ask that question.
No, no worries. Okay, yeah. So plucking the string is called pizzicato. That is Yeah, it's a common technique in
Okay.
instruments. So violinists, violists, so people who play the viola, people who play cello, it's all part of it. So yeah, so we can, you can use the bow to, pull it across the strings. But in this instance, I was just plucking it, and at the same time hitting the body of the violin to get like a percussive sound. So yeah, that is certainly something that is been done many, many times before by artists before me. There's so my other teacher, right? I said I had 3 teachers. So one of them is the elderly one who teaches me Hindustani music. I have a vocal coach, and I also have my other violin teacher in more Western styles. That's John Aditdam. Little John is his name, and so he is fantastic violinist, also sings, also raps, also beatboxes all at the same time while he's playing.
Wow.
When I studied with, I am still studying with him. I think I'll be studying with him forever. But one of the things he had told me was like, Sejal, you've written a song, and originally that song was meant to be played with a loop pedal, which basically allows you to like record a short little piece and then layer more music on top of it. So you can kind of accompany yourself. But he's like, Sejal, you need to learn how to play this song without any accompaniment. Like, no, let's say your loop station fails or breaks.
Right.
You need to perform this piece, just you and your violin. He's like, you basically need to learn how to play and sing and do your percussion bit all at the same time.
Right. Okay. Woo.
So, and that's not something I had ever learned how to do growing up. Learning to play and sing. I never learned how to play and sing at the same time. So it was quite a cool, like muscle memory exercise in order for me to learn how to play the rhythm, play the instrument, like pluck the strings and hit the instrument on time and sing at the same time. It's a very coordinated thing I had to learn how to do. So yeah, that's a bit of what's going on, and it was a little stressful to learn how to do it.
I was going to say, you could have fooled me, because it felt very flawless from what I was. How many times did you have to film that sequence?
I mean, Indian Summer Fest will have the scrap footage, I'm sure. I think we had to do it like maybe 4 or 5 times. Yeah, maybe 4 or 5 times probably. I was nervous.
I wouldn't have thought that 4 or 5 times was that many. So kudos. I would say kudos for jumping right on in. Let's talk about the lyrics of the song. Like, yes. I'm curious about, because I'm not a songwriter and I'm not a musician, although I very much appreciate it, and I dabble a little bit to the extent that I know how to dabble. How did the melody and the lyrics come together? Like, for you, do you start with a melody, or do you start with lyrics and match? Like, what's that process like for you?
Yeah, often I come to melodies first and then lyrics fill in afterwards. This one, so the lyrics for this one came from a couple places. One, I was in Haida Gwaii in 2015, and I was finishing my degree in environmental geography with a focus on natural resource management and First Nations governance in Haida Gwaii. I was doing a program there, and at the same time, my sister was pregnant with her first child, and she was in Vancouver. The baby was born. Of course, I couldn't be there, and I was also feeling very. I think it was just a combination of where I was in life and kind of who I was surrounded by while I was in Haida Gwaii. I was feeling very conscious about the fact that I did not feel confident enough in my connection to my culture, and feeling as though I was somehow going to let my future nephew, niece, whatever it was going to be, I felt like I was going to let this child down because I didn't feel I had a strong enough connection to my culture at the time. And so I was feeling very guilty, very nervous about those things. And I remember calling my sister at one time just crying because I realized I was like, I've lost a lot of my language proficiency. And so some of the lyrics came from that. And then the second verse, the second verse where it's like, I am my mother's, I am my father's, I am all who came before me. Those are lyrics from a friend from Haida Gwaii. His name is Graham Richards. He is a musician in the band called Jason Camp and the Posers, which is like a punk rock band from Skidegate, and they're awesome. Go listen to their music. They sing in, I think they sing in the Haida language, like one of the dialects, and they're just super fun. So yeah, Jason Camp and the Posers, that's the band. Go look them up. But Graham Richards actually gave me that that verse, I am my mother's, I am my father's, I am all who came before me, and we are divine now more than ever. He gave me those. We were in a conversation, and we were just talking about cultural identity things, and those were lyrics that he kind of were there. It was like a message that he gave me just to kind of, I think, help me go through whatever I was going through, and kind of, yeah. And I asked him if I could use those lyrics in the song, and he said, yeah, go for it. So yeah, I really appreciated that conversation that I had with
Collaboration is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
I love it. I love doing work in collaboration with folks. Thank you for sharing some of that, because there's some really deep lyrics there. A lot of things to think about as you're listening to this song. It's a very beautifully packaged song. The lyrics and the melody, it's all very beautiful. And then at some point I think to myself, oh my gosh, I need to let those words like impact me. Right? Because I got caught up in the beauty of it. I've listened to it several times. So every time I think I feel like I find something different. So I invite folks to listen to it over and over and over again. One, because it's beautiful, but two, because you're saying a lot of really important things there.
Thank you, Amy. That's really nice to hear. Thank you.
You do beautiful work. And of course, we shared this next video last year on this Almost Live platform with you performing as your duet in LaydyJams. So maybe just set up this video for us. Even though we've seen it before, it is one of, I have to say, gosh, this is like, picking your favorite children. This is one of my favorite pieces in all of the stuff that we've done on VocalEye, this LaydyJams bit. I was so impacted when I heard it the first time last year, so I'm really happy to share it with folks again as a reminder. And we have new folks. There's always new folks joining us. So set up this video for us. This is from Indian Summer Festival 2021.
Yeah. Sorry, just to clarify, Amy, you mean set up kind
LaydyJams.
Oh, to set up LaydyJams? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so LaydyJams I mentioned is my duo. That's with one of my best friends, Missy D. This filming of this ISF set from 2021 was literally the highlight of my year last year.
Awesome.
So fun. I had such a good time with my bandmates. So in the video you'll see me and my duo partner Missy D. We also have a drummer, a bassist, and a guitarist. The drummer is Ian Cardona, the bassist is Dave Taylor, and the guitarist is Vinay Lobo. Phenomenal musicians, very grateful to call them my friends and co-conspirators in music.
Co-conspirators, I love it. And where was this filmed?
This was filmed at the Convocation Mall at SFU Burnaby. So it's kind of outdoorsy, but it's also kind of surrounded by concrete and glass. And we're just kind of in the center of this big plaza, sort of. And there are people kind of walking around, a little bit around us. And yeah, it's like a very big, beautiful space that you'll get to hear us from.
Awesome. Well, let's have a listen to it, and then we'll come back and have a little chat. So Rick, when you're ready, hit play.
Hi, world. Yeah. This is Missy D. I'm Sejal. I'm together with LaydyJams. For us, or for me, shapeshifting, it's sort of the merge that happens between our two different backgrounds, or two different histories, the way we kind of have a versatile sound to the music that we make, whether it's hip-hop, whether it's R&B, whether it's classical music. You kind of hear the influences kind of shapeshift one another, and on top of that, the message that we bring out to the world, which is the change that we want to see.
Donne-moi 1 seconde, 2 secondes, 3 secondes. You got it going on, last pose got you looking strong. Miroir, miroir, retourne-toi sur mon dos. Wondering qui tu es. Toi-même tu sais, aimez-moi le star, je fais ma part, oublie-moi. Aussi pris en retard, give me one more chance. Call it l'espérance, hope feels good, LaydyJams, elle le chante. Count my blessings with a sourire, ouais. Me voilà, me voilà, me voilà. L'espoir est là. Me voilà, me voilà, me voilà. L'espoir est là.
And you feel what's coming. Yes, I can feel it. A revolution for hope is coming, and my ear feels good. Can you feel what's coming? Yes, I can feel it. A revolution for hope is coming, and my ear feels good. And my ear feels good. And my ear feels good. This is for the good people on the streets, fighting for what's right every day. This is to give thanks for those who marched and raised their voices for us long before we were born. This is for a future that looks so bright, but only if we learn more compassionate ways. This is for you and for me, but when it feels like too much, just remember you're not standing alone. So I have faith, I keep my head up, cause I got good people by my side. Look how far we've come, no, I'm not giving up this fight. So I have faith, I keep my head up, cause I got good people by my side. I can see where we're going, so now I know what hope feels like. And can you feel what's coming?
Feels good.
Yes, I can feel it.
I can feel
Revolution
it.
for hope is coming.
I can feel
My
it.
ear feels good.
Hope
Can you feel what's coming?
feels good.
Yes, I can feel it.
I can feel
Revolution
it.
for hope is coming.
I can feel
My
it.
ear feels good.
Me voilà, me
And my
voilà.
ear feels good.
Me voilà, me
And my
voilà.
ear feels good.
Wow, LaydyJams. So Sejal, I can't, I don't know how to express enough how much I love this piece, because for me, everything is coming together. It's like this perfect gift of music and lyrics and the way the two of you perform together and how you overlap and how you support each other, and the words of the song, the revolution of hope is coming. I love this piece so much. I love it so much. It makes me, and I'm not a musician, it makes me want to get up and sing and dance and like do what you're doing. So I will never do it justice. So thank you for letting us share this. Tell me about the partnership here and how the two of you go about creating this song. Again, is it about melodies and sounds first, or knowing what message you want to share, or because now you've got two folks creating and a band.
Yeah, totally. So that song, we call it like Hope 1, and then right after that, the video stopped right there, but there's Hope 2. So Hope 2 was actually written first. That was written between Missy D and one of our former members, Maneo Mohale, who's a fantastic poet and author. They are from South Africa. So Maneo and D had kind of written Hope, what we now call Hope 2. And at some point, I wrote Hope 1, and basically we realized that Hope 1 was going to be like a prelude to Hope 2.
Right.
Which Missy D started singing in this version of Hope 1. She says, "Hope feels good. Do you feel it? Do you feel it?" So that's the chorus of the next of the second part, which is Hope 2. When we write together, we often might have a beat playing that we both like, and then we'll be kind of talking about themes, ideas, and then we'll kind of start writing lyrics separately and then bring them together. But usually when we start writing things, it's usually come out of like some big, long debrief that she and I have had about something in life. Like anytime she and I hang out together, we have to like catch up on each other's past week and it takes 2 hours. Like we debrief everything together. And we usually have to eat something together, and usually have to listen to some music together, and maybe dance in the car a bit together. And then we can finally get to like band practice or writing or something. So our friendship always is kind of like at the root of it all. And music is like the way we get to be in this world together and have our friendship together. And LaydyJams is like, it really is our friendship, and the love we have for each other, kind of the sisterhood that she and I have together.
Is that where the name comes from?
LaydyJams, there was 4 of us in university, and we picked this name LaydyJams, and we're like, we're gonna make it different by adding a Y in the middle, because we're like, it looks cool when you type it out. But we're like, yeah, I don't know. We're planning to change the name soon.
Oh, well, you'll have to come back with a new release under a new name with with some new pieces to share with us. Maybe you'll be in next year's Indian Summer Festival. What is it that you hope that people take away from your music?
I think while LaydyJams music and Sejal's solo music, they're different things, for sure, in terms of style, in terms of having even just the ensemble. With LaydyJams, we've got a full band behind us, where when it's me, it's just me and my violin. It's just me trying to see what I can get out of my instrument and my voice. So the vibes are a bit different, but in terms of message and intentions, I think a lot of it is similar, in the sense of we are talking about sometimes we're talking about identities, but often we're talking about just the human experience and challenges that people face in all sorts of intersections moving through life. With LaydyJams, I often feel it's much more hopeful, because I feel like I'm making music with one of my best buddies, and so I feel a bit more hopeful about the world. And so while we might be talking about heavy things and injustices, there's also a sense of okay, but I think I know what we need to do, because I've got people beside me that I love and trust, and I know who are looking out for me as well, So I think I have a bit more hope that way, because I'm like, okay, it was in one of the lyrics, look how far we've come, no, I'm not giving up this fight. And one of the lyrics was something along the lines of like, I've got good people around me, and so I'm not giving up this fight, kind of thing,
Right.
Like I keep my head up because I've got good people by my side.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm having a hard time remembering my own lyrics. But
That's I had a discussion with another musician once about this, because I can never remember lyrics to songs unless they're playing.
Right.
Then I can sing to them, but I cannot. It doesn't, like, it's all, even with Happy Birthday, sometimes I'm like, wait, what's the next line? I was always asking him, when you have so many songs in your repertoire, how you remember those. And he was saying the same thing. You really just have to practice them. Whew. All right, Sejal, we are gonna take a break and say goodbye to you just for a moment. And then you're gonna join us back at the Q&A afterwards. And so I'm gonna bring Laura June back into the space. And we're gonna set up a short 60, they call it a 60-second documentary, just to introduce our next artist piece. So what are we gonna experience in this, Laura June?
So this next piece is a filmic presentation of an artist that we had live at the festival in our 2022 edition, who's also been at the festival through various artistic projects over the years. The artist project is called Modern Biology, and the artist's name, who is the lead of Modern Biology, is Tarun Nayar. And he is a really interesting person. He has been a musician all his life. He's trained in classical Hindustani music. He's studied very, very rigorously. And he also is a biologist. He's a trained biologist. He worked in the band Delhi to Dublin, which may be a crowd favorite here. They have toured the world and played huge concerts for the last 15 years. He's been touring internationally, and this is a new solo project outside of his band. And so this project is really a merging of his science practice and his music practice. And in it, I think he might discuss it in the piece, but what he's doing is taking electrical impulses from plant materials that are in the natural world around us, plugging into them, and there are electrical currents that convert into MIDI data that can then get processed through a synthesizer and heard by our ears as music. And so it's not that the plants are playing music exactly, but the plants are expressing an electrical impulse, same as we are as humans and all living creatures. And it can be interpreted as music directly with a little bit of like filter. There's some filtering going on, but it is coming directly from the plant. And so that's the project. It's really this merging of his musical disciplines and musical training in terms of the artistic decisions that he makes and as to how the sound comes through. And then he's applying this into his biologist practice. So it's a very, very cool project, modern biology.
It sounds super cool. So I think we should just watch the 60-second doc, literally 60 seconds, friends. So we'll come back and talk about it in 60 seconds.
Over the last few years, I've really been immersed into building my own synthesizers. I came to understand that everything has bioelectricity. I'm Tarun Nayar. I'm from Vancouver, and I make music using mushrooms. My fiance and I, we're into mushrooms. We eat mushrooms. I have lots of friends who are really, really into mushrooms. I'm a forager, so I was like, okay, there's a lot here to work with. Growing up as a South Asian kid, being a musician was not really an option. I chose biology, but now I'm a former biologist turned musician. Everything is really holding vibration. We're just surrounded by electromagnetic waves all the time. Listen to all of the electricity and waves. It's a whole world.
I wasn't kidding when I said literally 60 seconds. It's just a little snapshot into who the artist is and what he's doing. And now we're going to play a video that's about 4.5 minutes long, but this is like the culmination of the work, so to speak. So set this up for us, Laura Jean.
I think that the previous video that we just watched actually set this up in a really beautiful way. This piece was not a commission by Indian Summer. This is a piece that was produced externally to our organization, but we're happy to include it in this watch party because of the live experience not being documented in such a way in terms of the live experience that we presented at the festival. So I think I'll let the film speak for itself.
Do you have any idea where this film takes place?
My understanding is that this was filmed between two primary territories. I wasn't involved in the film, so I might not have all of the information, but my understanding is that it was filmed in two primary territories, one being MST territory, Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh territory, aka the city of Vancouver and some of its surrounding areas. And then the second territory is an incredible place with a terrible colonial name. It's the shared territories of the Homalco, Slayaman, and Klahoose nations, a small island in the northern Gulf Islands that is colonially known as Cortez Island, which is a horrifying name that should definitely change. But it's a beautiful place, and Tarun spends a lot of time there and works with the land there in really deep ways.
Awesome. All right, we're going to have a listen to this and we'll come back and chat about it. So Rick, when you're ready, hit play. Okay, welcome back. That was really beautiful to listen to, and the visuals really are the artist in the middle of a forest with his I guess his sound equipment, his little mixing equipment, and just playing with plants, I guess, putting the electrodes on them and mixing them, and then and what's really nice is you hear the electrical impulses that have been translated into the music, and then you also hear the sounds of the forest environment, the rustling of the leaves and the birds and that kind of. It was a really cool combination of things.
Yeah, and this was part of the way we approach. I think that film is very, very beautiful, and I really love that this project, Modern Biology, at its core is connecting us as humans with our non-human kin, particularly plants. I think that we live in such a human-centric way of being, and it's clearly a colonial mindset. When I say we, I don't think that that's applicable to all people, but certainly within my own cultural context, and particularly in this urban environment also, there's such a human-centric way of living that can view the natural world as though that's a thing. The natural world is an incredibly, magnificent and absurdly diverse place.
Yes.
Prolific with life. And yet it's so easy to pay no mind and be so occupied with our human comings and goings. And so as we reckon with the climate crisis that is undeniably upon us, I think work like this is so important, that brings a sense of a shared communication between us and plant life that is seen as being so passive and inanimate, and even framed as though it's a resource. A resource, that's such an extractive way of thinking about trees, for example. I feel that film celebrated trees. There was a bit of an emphasis on maple, as well as it was within this like cedar grove. And so we can think about trees as being natural resources in an economy, or we can think of them as being living beings that we're sharing an experience with, an experience of time and place alongside. And so our festival this year, our 2022 festival, had a festival theme of inner and outer climates. And so all of our events woven through the entire festival was a contemplation of the ways in which we're reckoning with the climate crisis that is upon us as a colonial project that's undeniably resulting from colonial violence and colonial ways of thinking, and how we can also think about our inner climates, our mental health and our well-being, and this moment in the pandemic, and how we're approaching, finding ways to reach towards each other again, safely, hopefully better, definitely differently than we ever have before. And so this work, Modern Biology, really hit an intersection because it's contemplative, it's spacious, the way the music is shaped has all of this really lovely negative space that's held. I think there's a reverence to the tone. I'm curious to hear if other folks experienced it that way as well. To me, when I hear in the spaciousness a kind of a reverence, a slowing down, an invitation to listen with a certain kind of attention to the natural world around us, which is why when we presented Modern Biology at the festival, we did so in an open air sort of natural amphitheater at the pointed end of Granville Island, overlooking the harbor. And so participants or guests in the audience were invited to bring a blanket or a chair of some sort, and were invited to sit on this grassy knoll, and were invited even to lay down or rest, like picnic style, while this music played softly for an hour through headphones. Guests were invited to wear headphones that were digitally connecting. What's the word I'm looking for?
Like Bluetooth? Wireless?
Yeah, wireless connection direct to his output. So
Right.
the sound was impeccable. It was really high quality sound. You could hear the subtleties of the particular notes that were being played. I use a little bit of air quotes for that, but played by the plants themselves. So you were having this opportunity and an invitation to almost commune with the plants with a type of intimacy outdoors.
Well, we do happen to have two folks in the room with us tonight, community members who participated in this exact thing that you're talking about. So I'd like to invite Shawn and Kristy into the space. If you want to join us in a square on camera, you're welcome to do that, or you can just unmute yourself and join us by audio. I'll let you all decide how you want to do that.
We've unmuted now.
You've unmuted.
It's
awesome.
A little difficult to align both of us on an iPad, and we're
no problem.
In COVID mode.
So, tell me, what was the experience like?
It was pretty cool to just be able to zen out on Granville Island near the ocean, listening to a headset. It was actually quite
I think Shawn
interesting.
he was more interested in the headset than anything else, but
And I like the idea of the synthesizers and electronics and all that. That sounded really cool to me.
Well, I have to say, so this was the first time I was happy to get an unsolicited, or to be unsolicitedly signed up for a mailing list. And I'm not sure how I got on the ISF mailing list, but thank you, because I got this email describing modern biology, and I thought, isn't this like the perfect blind friendly thing? And Shawn won't mind going with me because I'm always dragging him everywhere. But I'm like, I think you like this because of the headsets.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta do this. But we already had tickets to Describe Play on that day. So I emailed, I found an email address for ISF, and I just said, hey, if I write you a review, can we get a preview of this really cool thing? Because we're low vision and we really think it's going to be perfect. And I always get self-conscious when I ask for stuff like that, because I'm like, moocher. But I was met with like the most beautiful, welcoming. I talked to Melissa Radcliffe, who is Director of Operations. I don't know if I have her title right. But she was just like, please come, like it's only on one day, but we'll set you up with tickets. And I had mentioned like Granville Island isn't accessible for us as people with vision loss, and she goes, okay, we can meet you at the bus loop, or we'll give you a companion ticket, you can bring your own guide. And I'm like, this is just like, to me, there's accommodating the blind where it feels like a handout, and then there's just including, like, just come be a part of our audience.
Yeah, just supporting access needs, right?
Yeah, but it was more than that. Like, it just, like, we want you as part of our audience. Like, just come.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so we brought along our sighted guide, and unashamedly, she could drive and guide us through Granville Island. She was one of the ones who just laid down and listened to the Sunflower Serenade, and it was just, but it was so beautiful. It was
also cool because the guy was doing commentary on that. It was happening real time, so he was connecting to different plants and the trees of the area. So he was telling us what he was hooked into at the time.
Yeah, so we did sunflower, mesquite. Was it a pineapple?
Pineapple, I think.
A pineapple.
And then he had a couple of people volunteer so you could see what a person would sound like connected to this system.
Yeah.
So
how was that different than the plant life? Did you notice any difference?
To me, it sounded pretty similar, but there was different nuances probably, but to me, it sounded the same.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting that it was real
really
time.
Cool. And I think the ambient sound, like just having outdoors, because I know like Shawn was totally focused in on the sound. I'm not too good with this mindfulness stuff, so I was just absorbing every sound around me. I'm like, there's seagulls and there's waves.
We had a very talkative crow that had a lot to say during that performance.
But the crow added a lot, I think. It just did. And
he's the audience too. The crow's the audience too.
I think we stayed there for quite a while.
And I mean, just the venue, like from the minute we got there, like, you know, yes, we had a sighted guide, but I find the route was just really well laid out. Like it was a nice flow. So it wasn't a very complicated, because first we're like, where's this park we're supposed to go to? But it was just like right around the corner and it was nicely laid out and absolutely.
And really interesting part of performance work you don't normally see, you know.
Because we've only been there for like in theater stuff. So no, I just want to commend ISF for just that inclusion feel. The other thing we did, which we liked, was when we registered for the closing party. When we registered, it actually said, please check here if you'd like a companion ticket. And I thought that was a really discreet way of offering a concession without having people feeling self-conscious and not wanting to ask again. You know, like, can we have another free ticket, please? Because yeah, you know. So we thought that was super cool. So yeah.
And it was a super cool after party at
the
end.
It was a super cool after party. You guys, ISF throws the best parties. You guys got me to dance, and I'm not good. I'm supposed to be working on physio, and you guys got me to dance, and I was okay. And I can say this: I identify as West Indian. I'm from the Caribbean. My ancestors are from India, and there's a little bit of systemic racism in there because the West Indians, we want to seem like we're above the East Indians, so there's a little bit, lots of systemic racism in there. Anyway. I always joke to Sean that since my challenges started with my coordination it got worse about 4 years ago. I said to him, man, I'm dancing like a white person now. I can only move my shoulders. I lost my Indianness. And at the ISF party, I found my Indianness again. It wasn't like, okay, there are people on that floor that can move. And I can't move like that anymore. Maybe that's a goal for next year. But you guys made me move. So thank you. I think, yeah. One day I'll be able to get my Indianness back again.
Sounds like you all had a really wonderful time. Laura June, you were at that the final closing party. Did you get a chance to say hello to Sean and Kristy? Did your paths cross?
We have a picture because Laura June found us after modern biology. Actually, it was really sweet. Suresh Rao remembered me just by voice. Well, probably recognized me too, but he remembered me from 2019 at the BC Access Awareness Day at the Art Gallery because
they were bonding over a poem.
Yes, he had recited a poem, and I knew the poem because we both studied it in grade school. Me in Trinidad and him in India. So he was like, I can't forget the person who knows Tarantella. And he remembered me 3 years later. Awesome. And it was funny because I remembered him by voice too. I didn't even have to go, who's speaking to me, which I usually have to do. I'm like, that's Suresh. I remember him now. So we actually have a picture, Sean and me and our guide Annika, with Laura June and Suresh, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. You can display it in your new kitchen when it's all done.
Yes.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on the festival. I wish I had been there to experience some of that stuff. So it sounds like
and this is what we want to say to the low vision audience in general. Reach out. Like there's no shame in asking if you see something, like just take a chance.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised because we were so welcomed. And I mean, yeah, I'm so happy we got that chance. So, you know, you don't know what you're missing out, and you have to be brave enough to try and to ask.
Well, thank you for that nugget, that little bit of that little push. Some of us need that little push from now and then. So thanks for reminding us of that. All right, friends. Well, let's invite Pawan and Sejal back into the space. And friends, this is your opportunity to ask questions of our guests. It's your opportunity to share your thoughts on what you experienced tonight. Anything that you want to ask, that's what they're here for. Or just to share your comments on what you've experienced. So I'm sure they'd love to hear all of that. So I'll encourage folks to use the raise your hand function, and I'll keep my broken peepers, but my peepers. Oh, well, we got a hand already. I don't even have to say much more, but we got a hand already. And it's Megan. Megan's always in the lineup, almost first to put her hand up. So Megan.
Yes, I love the festival, especially with Lorraine. But when you said something about Hindustani, does that mean Hindu music?
I think that was that Sejal that you were talking about, the different types of music?
No. I mean the music in general. Like when you said Hindustani, does that mean Hindu music?
No,
Like
yeah.
Hindustani?
Yeah, I'd mentioned Hindustani, which is like when people say Hindustani, it usually means like from the northern part of South Asia. So there's like two, I'm sure there's more, but the two main kind of forms of music that we learn about from South Asia is Carnatic, which is from the south, and then Hindustani, which is from the north. And so Hindustani music was, my history and theory of it is very, very, very limited, but Hindustani music was very much influenced by like the Mughal Empire and music from Persian places and places, like the Persian region, sort of Persian places. What does that even mean? So it's just a different form of music. So the scales are different. Like the scales that you would use in Western music are different compared to what you would use in Hindustani music, different compared to what you'd use in Carnatic music, which is the South. So it's just kind of a region of music, a little influence.
Cool. So does that mean because your parents were from India, right? Right?
Yes. Yeah. My mom comes by way of Bombay, like in Mumbai, and my dad, his family had gone to Fiji. So displaced many times, settlers in many ways. Yeah.
So were they because usually I'm just curious, are you what religion are you? Like Hindu, Sikh, which
yeah. So I mean in India, even just in India, there's like so many cultures, so many different languages, groups. Like it's just because you're one thing doesn't necessarily mean you're from a particular religion. My family happens to be Gujarati, and we are Hindus. But there are many folks who are Gujarati and they're Muslim. So so I guess I was raised with Hindu teachings, but I myself don't practice all of it because, like many religions, there are many problems.
Right.
I love the Hindu religion. Sorry about that. I was just curious. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Megan. We appreciate you.
Yes, I love the festival. I'd love to come to it live in May next year. I'll have to see how it is then.
I'm sure you're welcome anytime.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, we have a hand from Louise, and then we have a hand from Karen, and then we have a hand from Lori. So let's go to Louise.
Okay, sorry, I had to unmute. I could relate to a lot of it tonight, but I think the first one, the 20-minute one, was where my heart, it was like...
Oh, the O show, yeah.
Yeah. Because I felt that the acceptance inside the story, teaching us how she came there. Sorry. I hate when voiceover does that. Sorry. The story in that first one just hit me because I think at times I struggle with acceptance of. I mean, I was born with different disabilities, and acceptance of it. You know, you can accept some of it, but you can't accept it all. And I felt her acceptance of everything, of who she was. And it was so powerful. It was, I could have sat there and listened to her voice all night. It was
Louise, you're really growing in this space. I love
As I
this.
say-
I love this.
I mean, oh yes, the other ones were powerful, but that one just, I could listen to that
Gotcha.
over and over again. I mean, because there was more than just a story. There wasn't just a story, there was the music. The one song in there, it was like, it was, later in it that I fell in love with, it was like, and I don't like that kind of music. I'll go, but that just hit I guess with the story, it was just the way it was shared.
Yeah.
She wrote it in a way that if you have acceptance problems of who you are, it really helps you grow. And I mean, I still struggle with one of my disabilities, and it's not the fact I don't dislike it. I just like, why did I get it? Why am I who I am? And I tonight looked at it in a different form, thanks to her, the story, in a different way. It's helping me. I don't say it's going to take away some of the feelings I have. I'm just saying it helps realize that others struggle too.
Thank you, Louise, for sharing. Just so you know, Laura June sent you a heart emoji.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I could re-listen to that one.
And a heart from Karen too.
No, but thank you for sharing that one. Oh, it was powerful.
Thank you, Louise. Appreciate those comments. Karen's got a hand, and then we'll go to Lori. So Karen, you're up, my friend. Throwing hearts out all over the place tonight.
Yes. Beautifully said, Louise. That was so beautiful. Yeah, the O show, such vulnerability. I just love seeing that as well. It was just so beautiful. And I thank you all for bringing these beautiful pieces to us, and expanding our learning, our knowledge, and the beauty that art brings all across all peoples and spectrums. So that's just been so wonderful to see. And in fact, the gentleman from Dubai to Dublin, love seeing them. I've seen them in person, in concert many times. Actually, a friend of mine, John, puts on a lot of big productions here. The July Fest in Cloverdale, and also the other festival we have coming up in Surrey. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it's coming up as well. So the different ethnic musics, and I'm trying to think of the name. But anyway, I saw it at one of those wonderful shows, and really they were fabulous. Really enjoyed it. And actually, I love documentaries so much that I saw that the first one he had somewhere, and I can't quite place it, but loved it so much because I'm really into science too. So it was, and music. So that was just really so wonderful to see. And I found the second one, Laura June, I found that I was very mindful and in the moment. That's what I really felt and really, really enjoyed, because I love the forest and grew up in Coquitlam on the side of the mountain, and spend much of my time as a child with my siblings and friends and neighbors exploring the forest. So yeah, it took me back to my childhood. And really, I love the fact that you can bring music, that everything vibrates. Just love that so much. And always really found even that we were on, that we were living on First Nations lands. I always felt that deep in my heart. So living in Coquitlam, even as a young child and not knowing much about that. So yeah, that brought a lot back for me. And I must say, Sejal, that your second piece played, I've seen that too. and absolutely fell in love with the two of you and your band. Really enjoyed seeing that again. And myself, having been classically trained in piano and have played guitar, always wanted to play electric, but I don't think my mom was really into listening to that. But I still wish I played. I have a few instruments that I've always wanted to learn to play as well, which is the harp and especially the violin. And I've been looking for a violin to start learning through this pandemic. I thought that would be a really great thing to start. So my question of you is and I have to say, I love your voice. Just exquisite, just so beautiful. Are there any other instruments? And I love the fact your parents finally took you seriously. And I can understand because my aunt is from Bombay and her parents are very much like that too. So could you tell me, is there some other instruments that you've always been interested maybe in picking up and trying perhaps through this pandemic or any point in your life too? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. It's Sejal here on the call. I always, well, not always, more recently, like probably since I started studying with my teacher, John, he introduced me to some bass artists, like double bass and electric bass artists. And when I heard their music, I was like, oh, the bass is a really cool instrument because it carries so much. It does a lot of the heavy lifting in chords when we're playing music, especially when we're playing in ensembles, right? Like in groups. The bass instrument is exceptionally important. I know people make fun of the bass player sometimes, but a good bass player is hard to come by, and when you find one that you jive with, like we play with Dave Taylor, man, you learn so much about playing with each other. You learn so much about music when you have a bass player that can play really funky notes that you didn't realize hold the song in a different way, So the bass is one instrument that I wish I could pick up. I haven't tried to really pick it up, or another instrument, just because the violin a lot of my time and attention and continue to, so I'm just kind of trying to focus on getting good at one thing right now. So I unfortunately haven't really dedicated as much time as I would love to the bass, but hopefully one day.
I'm sure you'll be just as lovely as a bass player as you are as a violin player, so embrace it. Awesome. Thank you, Karen, for those questions and those insights and comments. We're going to go to our last question, which is a hand from Lori.
Audio now unmuted.
I want to say the music tonight was just wonderful. I'm a bit tired, so but yeah, hearing your music and the violin, because I like that type of different type of music. So your playing and singing was just wonderful, and I was lying on my couch listening to it. It's like, oh, this is sort of a nice way to end the day, just listening to what you were singing and you playing the violin. I've never heard the violin played that way before, the way you were doing it, picking the strings. I'm used to hearing it the other way. So does that take you a long time to learn how to do it that way, to pick the strings instead of using the bow on it?
No, actually, playing with the bow is harder.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Plucking the string, you just kind of pluck. It's like I will often pluck the strings if I'm trying to practice something and just kind of get my fingers around it, sort of my left hand. But yeah, using the bow is like an additional, that's, the instrument is to play with the violin and the bow. But the bow, of course, requires a lot more technique, and it's requires a lot more kind of practice and study to it as well, But in terms of me learning how to sing and play at the same time, it was easier for me to learn how to just pluck the violin while singing than to try to learn how to play with the bow while singing at the same time. So it was kind of like it was a way for me to ease into playing and singing at the same time.
Do you have to hold it different since you're not using the bow on it for the violin?
No, I still hold it the same way. I'll hold the violin on my left collarbone.
Anthony Spinelli has left the...
And then I will use my right hand to pluck the strings rather than using the right hand to hold the bow. Yeah, so I'll still hold it the same way.
Well, you're very good at it.
Thank you.
It's got a very unique, beautifully unique sound that comes out of that. Hey, Lori?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Awesome.
And now lowered.
Well, thanks, friends. I mean, time flies by so fast. I'm curious what's next for the Indian Summer Festival, other than y'all need like a good week's worth of rest. And I'm sure there's going to be a debrief and a postmortem and all of those things. But I'm curious about, like, when do you start planning for the next festival? How soon does that happen after this process? Pawan, you want to take that one?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, we've already had the debrief. We're looking to take some time off in August, some well-needed rest and rejuvenation. So, you know, we close the office for a couple of weeks. Some of us take a lot of our vacation in August. So we kind of, you know, go back to our lives, and then we come back in September and we are hitting the ground running. This festival takes, a whole year cycle to pull off, starting with the work Laura June does with grants and fundraising. That starts up in September. Then we start really visioning and really getting into logistics and start to vision out artists in, you know, the end of the year. And then come January, February, we're into organizing pieces, getting artists together. Who are we collaborating with? Where is it happening? And then we're in it again in the production flurry. So most people are surprised that, you know, it takes a year to pull it off. They're always like, oh, so what do you do when the festival's not happening? And I'm like,
plan the next festival.
Plan the next festival, yes.
What is that process like? You know, Laura June, you spoke about you know, kind of, I'm going to paraphrase, but kind of breaking down the traditional systems that we have in place. And so, like, when I think about artists submitting for festivals, there's a system that's in place for that to happen. So what do you all do at the Indian Summer Festival that's different from that? Maybe you could speak to what the traditional the system is, and maybe what you're doing that breaks that convention.
What a lovely question. Thank you, Amy. I feel
I aim to please.
Yeah, boy, do you ever. I think there's quite a few ways that, I mean, there are many systems that need to change. And so I feel that our, you know, brave little team of festival organizers, we try to be really thoughtful. And I mean this genuinely. We try to be really thoughtful in so many different ways that we do our work. Like if we're building like an inclusivity is one of our core values. And so if we're building an inclusive cultural experience, like an event, then can we do that in such a way if our team isn't able to get rest or take sick days? You know, absolutely not. That's not inclusive. We can't just make an inclusive thing over here if we're not having inclusivity in our practice in the way that we approach. So that's an example of what I mean, where we really strive to walk the walk and think deeply about, like, what's our artist experience, what's our audience experience, what's our staff experience, you know, who's on our board of directors. It's really important. Representation is really important in that space. You know, how does hiring work? We really try to think deeply about building something from the ground up throughout all of our systems in ways that are really thoughtful. But I will say one thing that I think Indian Summer does that is quite distinct to us is that we create events in quite a boutique, that's maybe kind of a pretentious word, but like we create events that are one time only. we approach events that our event making is quite ephemeral in the sense that you had to be there or you missed it. That's not to say we'll never do runs of shows. We are open to that. We are planning something with a 2-show run in 2023, for example. So it's not to say that we won't do that, but we're really not, it's not like a plug and play model. Right. We're not like, oh, here's the stage manager, just show up with your tech writer and like you'll get your check at the end and off you go. Like we're thinking through hospitality, we're thinking through details, we're thinking through what's the entrance experience. We're not just like, here we are at the venue, the whole sound system goes up, PA, audience comes, they give cash, then they leave and it's all done. Like we don't approach it that way. And it's actually quite labor intensive to try to make a really magical one time only unique event every time, but we try to do that. So I think that's one way that we're shifting, what arts can be or attempting to anyway, doing our best.
Were you able to pull the numbers, the approximate audience numbers?
Yes.
Oh, I'm just curious, just as the world is reapproaching in-person things again.
Yeah, so our attendance is interesting because it has fluctuated so much through the years, right? Like prior to the pandemic in like 2019, our biggest event had like 650 people at our opening party and like 3,000 people at our concert, and so and then during those were pretty big numbers for us. And then during the pandemic, we had events with like 10,000 people, on YouTube, streaming on YouTube Live. Like our events were huge through the first lockdown, right? It was the digital events were just absolutely enormous. And so then this year, building back slowly, carefully, cautiously, we averaged somewhere in the vicinity of about like our biggest event was at the Chan Center, which had around 1,000 people present, a sold out show. And then our biggest events were at Performance Works were in the range of like 300. And then we had a few events at the like 150, 200 range. So
I think those are pretty good numbers for festivals.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty darn good to me. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. Sejal, I want to know what's next for you, and then we're going to do a prize draw. So what's coming up for you?
Yeah, so next for me, I do have the Nelson Mural Festival. I'll be traveling for that. That show is with LaydyJams, so I'll be traveling with my.
Can you just repeat it again, Sejal, because you broke up a little bit there. Repeat it for us.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, LaydyJams will be performing at the Nelson Mural Festival.
Okay.
In a couple of weeks, so I'll be driving out there with Missy D for a little road trip to go perform there. And then in the fall, I am planning to release my debut EP. And yeah, so the first song that you heard today, the name, that will be on that EP. Yeah, but that
let us know.
I will. It's in the works, trying to get it going. It's my first time figuring out how to do all these things, so it's a little slow and uncoordinated on my end. But yeah.
Awesome. I'm really excited to hear all of that. Thanks to the three of you for joining us in the space, for being our guide through the Indian Summer Festival, for sharing some of the gifts. And I enjoy you all so very much. You're welcome back anytime. As Laura June knows, 3 years ago running, right? Papa knows 2 years running. You're welcome back anytime. So Sejal, maybe this will not be the last time you're in this space with us. Maybe we have to do something when you launch your EP. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
I would love
but we have a prize draw to get to. So before I officially let you go to bed for the evening, let's bring Sarah into the space and get our prize draw underway.
Hello. So I think I'm doing the prize draw with Sejal.
That's correct.
So Sejal, whenever you're ready, please just shout out a word that you like, and I will pick the winner.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna say bubbles.
Okay.
Bubbles.
Okay. I do believe our winner is Karen Popov Lerner.
You got Karen?
I'm sorry if
Yeah.
I'm pronouncing it wrong.
That's okay. It's Popov like stove. If you're a vodka
Oh.
drinker, you'd be able to say that.
Karen
Well,
Popov.
congratulations, Karen.
Thank
You
you,
won our
thank
raffle prize
you.
tonight. And as we do every week, we will connect with you offline just to make sure that you get the raffle prize that works for you.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say, really, the biggest gift of all, and I think everybody would concur, is having you all here with us tonight. So thank you again. This has just been an amazing evening. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All right, friends, that, as they say, is a wrap. So thank you very much for joining us on this VocalEye Almost Live event and sharing with us a bit about the Indian Summer Festival. I look forward to having you back next year.
VocalEye, vocaleye.ca. Special thanks to our funders, the Canada Council for the Arts, the British Columbia Arts Council, the Province of British Columbia, and the City of Vancouver.